careful if you're going to upgrade your Steam Deck. How's it going, everyone, and welcome to Deck Ready, the channel all about the Steam Deck and other gaming handhelds. So today I've got a little bit of a story time about how I broke my Steam Deck again, and this time it was 100% my fault. Huge shout out to Struct for sponsoring this video. Struct is an app for creating, playing, and sharing games where you can make games from your own ideas without any coding skills. You can start from a ready-made template or a blank draft to realize your idea. More than 2 million games have been created with Struct in a bunch of different genres like zombie apocalypse, RPG, shooter, and racing. If you want to see an example of some of the great games that can be played on Struct, here's their new flagship game, Struct Showdown. Struct Showdown is a fun little third-person shooter that's got everything you would expect to see in a bigger game, but it actually controls super well on your phone. You have running, you have a little zoom in that kind of mimics ADS, you can reload whenever you want, you can jump, and I honestly thought the map design was pretty good as well. And the best part is the Struct apps and the games on it are both completely free to play and create. You can either scroll through everything or type in specific games you want to play. Finally, you can like the games that you enjoy playing and share them with your friends so you can play together. The Struct team listens to its community and updates the app with new features every week. If you're looking for new games to play or you want to create them yourself, use the link down in the description to check out Struct. It's available right now for free on both the App Store and the Play Store. So last week I got God of War Ragnarok and I was going to play the out of that game. So I was like, oh, I'm taking a trip next week. I'll just use this time to download a bunch of games that I want on my Steam Deck. So I plugged in my Steam Deck in the living room, left the case open, and had the Steam Deck in the case charging so it would download a bunch of games. And at some point over the 2-day period, the case for my Steam Deck got closed. I picked it up thinking it was zipped. I didn't check, and it fell on the ground and broke the LB button. Like, I think what happened is the little button on the board in there that's like, it's like standing up, I think it got pushed back and it broke. I knew that wasn't the easiest part to fix, but I've taken apart the Steam Deck so many times over the past few months that I felt like if I could buy that little board off of iFixit, I could just fix it myself. Unfortunately, it's either not available at the time I was looking, or it's just a part that they don't sell over on iFixit. I also had another issue with my Steam Deck where when I would put it horizontally, like the fan would rattle, and that's apparently an issue a lot of people had, and I didn't want to go through the process of sending it into Valve, which takes 5 days, and then wait for them to like either fix it or replace the Steam Deck, and then wait another 5 days for it to come back. Like, the fan was working, everything was working fine. Because I had already replaced the Steam Deck once, I decided to let it ride, but now I had to get it fixed because the L1 button broke. But this time, instead of sending it all the way to Carroll Stream, Illinois, I noticed that the FedEx label was having me send it to United Radio, a separate company in Utah, which is great because that's a lot closer than Illinois is to California. So I packaged it up and shipped it out last Saturday, so 2 Saturdays ago at the time of recording this video, and it got there the following Monday, so a week ago today, because right now it's Monday, November 14th, so 7 days ago, I guess the 7th, is when it got to United Radio. And I'm just gonna be real, the entire experience with United Radio so far has been extremely negative. The first thing that annoyed me is how long it took them to look at the Steam Deck. They got it last Monday, the FedEx label verified that, and they did not look at it, they told me over the phone, until yesterday, November 13th. So they waited 6 days to take a look at the Steam Deck at all. And then in the same phone call where they let me know they looked at it, they let me know that this is not a warranty repair and I'm going to have to pay $115 to get the entire front panel of the Steam Deck replaced. And I was like, okay, but why? The next thing that's kind of annoying here, and where I started to get suspicious about what was going on at United Radio, is the fact that there are a ton of people on Reddit saying that yes, they got a brand new Steam Deck from an RMA, or they bought a Steam Deck from Valve, and just some of the fans have a loose ball bearing that makes it so when you put the Steam Deck horizontal on like a flat surface, it rattles, but when you put it vertically, the rattle goes away, and that's because of a bearing. That's exactly the issue I had from the second I opened up my Steam Deck when I got it back with my first RMA, and it was a brand new Steam Deck. United Radio has come up with a different story though. So basically when you open up the Steam Deck, you use a little pry tool to unclip some clips that are on the front panel that clip the back panel onto the Steam Deck. One of those clips actually broke off my Steam Deck, and I know exactly when it happens. One day after I was shooting here, I was walking back to my office and I dropped the Steam Deck case, and when I opened the Steam Deck, in one of the corners, the back panel was popped off a little bit and the little piece was gone. It's just gone. The key thing to keep in mind here though is that the fan was having that rattling issue well before I dropped the Steam Deck and broke that little clip off. United Radio is saying that that little piece is causing the rattle. I'm calling bullshit on that because I've taken apart this Steam Deck like 3 or 4 times since I dropped it and broke off that little clip. And also, as I already mentioned, that rattle was there before I ever dropped it or before I ever took it apart at all. I know this is he said versus he said at this point, but the issue is that rattle was there when I got my Steam Deck. So even if that little piece broke off and was causing that rattle, it broke off before I even got the Steam Deck in my hands. So I asked them to kind of justify why they're not taking me at face value, and they're saying, well, we saw that the little aluminum tape that you have to remove to upgrade your SSD was removed. And we're taking that as evidence that when you took apart your Steam Deck to upgrade the SSD, you broke off that piece. Look, guys, I know it's he said versus he said. I'm gonna keep saying that. I did not break off that piece when I opened my Steam Deck. The only thing I could ever think of breaking that little piece off would be when I dropped it. But the rattle they're saying that piece caused was there from the very beginning when I got the Steam Deck. So I don't think it's causing the rattle. I also don't think that's justification to void the warranty. The real thing that makes this the worst though is what they said next, which is that they will not repair the LB button or the fan unless I allow them to replace the entire front panel of the Steam Deck, which conveniently is the most expensive part of this process and why it's costing me $115. I can tell you that if that piece was broken off when I got the Steam Deck, it has caused virtually zero issue for the playability, the heat, the way it runs games. It has been a non-issue for me from the start. So I asked them, can you just repair the button and the fan and leave the back panel as is? And they were adamant that the back panel can just fall off, despite the fact that I think there's like 8 screws holding it on. So like, yeah, that's just complete BS in my opinion. So the whole point here is that while Valve has been extremely cool about replacing Steam Decks for people who have maybe voided the warranty by upgrading their SSD, or the guy who didn't unplug his battery and then it fried his Steam Deck and Valve just replaced it for free, which was really cool, United Radio, the company you're sending your Steam Deck to be repaired, is doing anything they can to make sure they can charge you for the repairs. They are looking on your Steam Deck for any signs that you've tampered with it. They're looking at the aluminum tape, they're looking at the edges of the plastic on the Steam Deck's case, they're looking at these little clips on there that really ultimately don't matter if you lose one of them. They're also looking at the screws that hold the shield in place over the SSD. They said that those looked like they had been unscrewed, and I'm like, yeah, you have to unscrew them to get to the SSD and the battery. Valve said they expected people to work on this thing, and they said, yeah, that's true, but it also voids the warranty. So if you are going to send in your Steam Deck for an RMA for an issue you can't fix yourself, I would make it very clear that you want to do everything you can to make sure it doesn't end up at United Radio. I paid the $115 because I use the Steam Deck for work. I want it back. The experience I've had despite working with United Radio here has been incredible across the board, but I just want to let you guys know that yes, if you are doing an RMA, you're talking to Valve about any support, make sure you ask to send it to Carol Stream and just beg for an RMA where they just swap out the device. Because from what I've experienced here, after talking to UMI and trying to find any way I could around paying them, they are doing whatever they possibly can to charge you money to fix your Steam Deck, which really sucks because it's a handheld PC. The whole idea of it is that you're able to upgrade it and work on it yourself. I mean, the fact that Valve allows iFixit to sell you, the consumer, the parts to fix it is really awesome. But now the company they're contracting to repair the device for you if you can't do it yourself is doing anything they can to nickel and dime you. I've had a lot of YouTube channels over the years. I've never had an experience bad enough where I would go on a video and complain about a company, but it's just very clear to me that United Radio is doing anything they can to make sure you pay for a repair. So buyer be warned, if you do have any issues with your Steam Deck and they try to get you to send it to United Radio, do whatever you can to make that not happen. There is one big positive here though. Learn from the fact that I actually have 2 Steam Decks at my disposal. I decided, I guess kind of stupidly, I don't know. I decided that I would try to take the SSD out of my Steam Deck that I was sending in, the 1 terabyte one, and just not wipe it and put it in my other work Steam Deck and just see what would happen. I swapped them over. It was a really easy process. And when I started up my work Steam Deck with my 1 terabyte SSD from the other one in it, everything was still there. Everything just worked fine. All my games were there. I popped the SD card in. I didn't even have to log into Steam. So if you are going to go through a repair process where you have to send your Steam Deck in and you've upgraded the SSD, make sure you take out the upgraded SSD and put the original one back in, because you can just slot in the good one that has all your stuff on it when you get your Steam Deck back, and that saves you a ton of time downloading games and updates and everything like that. And the other reason I'm super happy I had 2 Steam Decks is because Valve just put out one of the biggest and best beta updates upgrades for the Steam Deck ever. And this also kind of ties into what I talked about last week with CryoByte33's Cryo Utility, which is an awesome piece of software that I fully understand now. So over on his channel, he has a video about an easy and safe performance upgrade you can give your Steam Deck. I highly recommend you watch the entire thing because I feel like I took a college course at the end of it. I feel like genuinely smarter and like I understand what's going on inside the Steam Deck. So what you're going to do to get better performance out of your Steam Deck is first increase the available VRAM from 1 GB to 4 GB, which is super simple. You're also going to activate trim and you're going to mess with the swappiness of your Steam Deck. And I will explain in normal people terms what both of those things are. I'm going to dilute this a lot, so if you want to learn more, again, check out CryoByte33's video. But basically what the trim function does is it goes through your Steam Deck's SSD's blocks and it determines which ones are fully empty and which ones are just not in use, which will in turn increase the lifespan of your SSD. Before this beta update, which is available in preview, the Steam Deck had no way to do this, but now you can actually force it in the system settings of the Steam Deck, but it'll also do it on its own periodically. So that's a good thing that's come from this whole video that CryoByte33 made, is that Valve was like, hey, why aren't we running trim on the Steam Deck? And now they've activated it in the actual OS. More importantly for the performance, and what I'd like to see Valve include later on as well, is messing with the swappiness of the swap file. Basically what a swap file is like slower RAM that's used in a portion of your SSD. So you can actually change the size of the swap file, which people have said increases performance in games like Dark Souls 3 and Elden Ring, but you can also alter how much the Steam Deck uses that swap file versus RAM. And the reason you would want to alter that and make it lower so that it uses RAM more than the swap file is that accessing RAM is overall a lot faster than accessing the swap file because the swap file is on your SSD. And while SSDs are fast, they're not as fast as RAM. The Steam Deck has its swappiness level at 100 by default. And what you're doing with this script is lowering that to like 1 so that it goes, whoa, I'm like barely ever going to use that swap file. I'm just going to take advantage of the 16 GB of RAM that the Steam Deck has. And you can see the real world performance increase, which is up to 24%, that you see noticeably in games like Elden Ring, which goes from like 30 frames per second that dips below 30 at some points to a pretty much hard locked across the board 30 FPS. And it doesn't really seem to affect battery life, which is even better. And then the third thing you can do to increase performance pretty much across the board without really affecting battery life is increasing the available VRAM from 1 GB to 4 GB. And all you do to turn that on is you hold the plus button when your Steam Deck is shut down and you turn it back on. It'll take you into the BIOS, then you go to advanced settings, and then you go to UMI frame buffer size and change it from 1 GB to 4 GB, and then your Steam Deck will have 4 GB of available VRAM, which overall will make your games run better. So that trim feature is one of the biggest features that's included in the new Steam Deck beta, but you're also getting an updated desktop mode, which brings it up to date with KDE and allows you to have an overview mode so you can see all the windows that are open, which is really nice. They also made it so if you have Steam running and you connect a DualShock 4 or a DualSense controller to your Steam Deck, you can use the touchpad as a mouse, which is great because I've been playing the original God of War games on my TV with the dock, and having a mouse pointer on my DualSense sounds awesome. And then there are other things like being able to turn off the OS level VSync and allow screen tearing, which like if you want to eliminate screen tearing, again, you can just turn it back on, or you can use VSync in every individual game you're playing. And there's a whole bunch of other updates. So I'm going to leave the Gaming on Linux article down in the description that has the entire breakdown of everything that's included in SteamOS Beta 3.4. I would just personally hold off on updating to this Beta 3.4 until it's in at least the stable channel of the beta branch of SteamOS, or if you really want to be careful, wait till it's just the stable version of SteamOS. Like it's just the update you do normally that's not in the beta branch. Mainly because a lot of the extra features are small, and the biggest one, which is activating trim, you can just do with Cryo Utilities, which is basically a 1 or 2 click install on the Steam Deck. And then with that, you're getting the swap fix, which is so important for running your games even better. And yeah, finally, huge shout out to CryoByte33. As soon as I posted my video last week, he let me know that he's been watching this channel since I started it, and that means a lot. So go check out his super detailed video on what this whole thing actually is doing with your Steam Deck. I hope I did a better job of explaining it in this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one.